I received a frantic call on Tuesday,
Yeah.
that Judy John broke her knee, I think, or she was at the hospital. And I got a call from Edelman. She was very bummed to not be able to be here. But the world is a funny place, because not only do Rob and I know each other for a long time, not only is Rob on our advisory board, but I recently asked him to mentor me about my reluctant CEO-ship. So in a weird way, I was like, would you like me to step in, and since Judy can't make it, and we can talk about the same topic, but...
It's basically a session with people listening in.
Right. Should I lie on the couch, like the fainting couch? But anyway, thank you for being here.
Happy to
And
be
we're color coordinated, which we just noticed, which is awesome. But the reason I was passionate about this session is I saw Judy present at a different conference in a small venue about the business side of creativity, and how, if you think about it, most agencies are helmed by people that came up through the account side. But if you think about the choices they're making about how money is spent and decisions that are made and staffing, it really makes sense that someone that has an appreciation, a deep, intimate appreciation for the creative process, which is the product that the agency makes, should be helming the agency. But very few people that are creatives become CEOs. So you are one. Joe Crump, that spoke earlier, is one. I mean, I'm running a small thing as a CEO, but I'm a creative. And there are times where it taxes my, I don't want a muscle. Like, I want to be creative. I want to just think of the fun stuff. So you're going to be helping me get over that, but you're going to be helping everyone in this room think about it differently. So take it away, and we'll just chat.
Okay. I mean, I don't really know where to take it away from, so we'll just start where we should start. I think that as a creative, who in the room here is actually a creative? Let me see, show of hands. Okay, oh, that's great. I was drifting, so in my kind of mid-40s, I used to be the chief creative officer of TBWA Chiat in LA, and then I got this global job, and I was kind of drifting. And at a certain point, new leadership came in, and they said, "What do you want to do, with your career?" And I said, I don't know. I'll go run something. I mean, like a typical creative, whatever the problem is. And Troy Ruhanen, our global CEO, said, "Well, why don't you think about becoming the CEO of New York?" And I thought, all right, wow, I was not thinking that. And I went away for about a week. I said, give me a week, let me write a business plan, a creative person's business plan, which is a dream, a delusion, not a lot of numbers. But I think the first thing I will tell you is that careers don't happen by accident, and don't be dumb like me. I got lucky, but you have to start planning a little bit. And I think in our business with some of the ageism issues, you have to start to plan. So I think the first thing is that start paying attention. Somewhere in your 30s, just start paying attention and start kind of looking around at people. And Lee once said to me, he said, Lee Clow, he said, you're either going to be like me or you're going to be like Jay, and Jay Chiat. And he's like, you have to think about that. And I wasn't really sure what he was talking about, but there's a moment where you're going to be a creative director for the rest of your career and try, or you're going to try something else. And when I started to think about Jay Chiat and Bill Birnbach and Mary Wells, these were creative people who ran agencies. So I think I started to see, okay, maybe it's that.
Right. And when you said that someone suggested you to become the CEO, like, I could feel the same impulse in me as when I answered a call in my kitchen and someone said, we'd like to ask you to be the PTA president. And I had it on speakerphone and I said, absolutely not. And my husband was standing there, he goes, you didn't even let her finish the sentence. So like, did you receive that? It seems like you received that kind of openly. You didn't have that gut wrench of like, that's not for me.
Well, I like the power. I was like, ooh, okay. CEO, I can influence stuff. Okay. And what I immediately started to do was look at kind of creative people in power. So, I'm a big music person. I started to look, at Jay-Z. I started to look at Quincy Jones. I started to, look at some of my heroes, and they were creative people. Quincy Jones was a trumpeter. He was part of an orchestra who kind of rose to become this sort of emissary of all things entertainment. And I thought, okay, creative people do that. Huh. So part of it was seeing creative people in positions of, in positions of power.
Right. So do you like it?
Yeah, it's the best job I've ever had, and I love being a junior copywriter. I mean, I started, having to write like headlines on menu ads and like doing table tents, and I thought that was great, So, what I tell people is that, it's like pizza. When you're a chief creative officer, you get one slice of pizza, and who doesn't love one slice of pizza? Like, it is amazing. But when you're the CEO, you get the whole pie. And I think having not just, yes, worried about the creative product, but okay, now I'm going to get into strategy a little bit. I'm like, okay, now I'm going to really start talking to clients. That's a whole other thing we can talk about. The finances, we should talk about that too. That's a really interesting piece to it. And then just the overall operations. So you have everything. And then you have this assignment, because as creatives, we like to work on projects, assignments. That is the agency. And the agency itself became my project. And thinking very creatively about what's the positioning, what are the words, what are the pictures, what do we want this thing to feel like? And I will tell you that running a business is a creative act. I mean, that's what I'm feeling.
Wow. Interesting. And so with the way you spend your time, I mean, tell us a little bit. I really enjoyed the panel that Xanthi and Jason were on earlier, where they contrasted, where you were referenced as one of Xanthi's heroes, but where they contrasted how their lives are different, how their meetings are different, how they spend their time, the demands on their time. Net that out for us. Let's just maybe not CCO, but like a lead creative versus the CEO. Like, are you in more meetings? Do you have less time to vacation? Like, what is the real pragmatic difference?
Well, I learned something as a CEO, which was I got to be the person in the room that didn't have to say a lot. And I think there's an impulse that you're the CEO, you're the leader, you've got to, kind of come in and show the way. And there was just a great session downstairs about feedback, and they were highlighting somebody who was the person who really needed the feedback. And that was the person who was, standing up and dominating the meeting and trying to show the way. So I think the first thing you have to understand is that your instinct as a creative to have the idea, show the idea, bring everybody to the promised land, that is not your job as the CEO. Your job as the CEO is to sit back and to really listen and really try to, hear where things are going, because it's your responsibility to create the environment where great things can happen. It's not necessarily your responsibility for you to have that great idea. Right. And I think that was the biggest difference. And once someone opened the world up to me that way, that I could just, and it was hard, just stop talking. Just fucking listen. It was incredible. And I think what it also did is that it allowed people like Xanthi, like Chris Beresford Hill, who I work with, I mean, it allowed them to shine because they had all the ideas.
Right. So are there ever times where your creative brain kicks in a meeting and you have to pull yourself back to a different frame of mind?
Yeah, it was harder in the beginning because, again, as creative people, we are trained to have the ideas. And I started writing more in meetings. Like I would have, people know who come to meetings, I got a notebook, I got a pad, I'm chronically writing. And I think sometimes people are thinking, oh, Rob's writing down what I'm saying. And I'm like, no, I have the answer. But that's not, I don't want to be that person anymore. So a lot of times I may have the answer and I don't even reveal it. And I'm like, you know what, that answer they had is so much better. And that's the other thing too, is that there's incredible satisfaction in seeing people rise, seeing people, you have this moment where you may have just put the dirt down on the grass. You've just kind of laid the place where they could plant the seed, and all of a sudden this magnificent tree grows. I mean, that is so rewarding in your career.
So the people in this room, at least by virtue of how we framed it, are people in the first 7 years of their creative career. So I'm guessing these are people that are, copywriters, art directors, maybe ACDs. Tell them, when you said pay attention, what are some of the skills that they should start to be thinking about having? I mean, you and I spoke on the phone, and you said, just watch some Khan Academy videos about basic accounting stuff, because you do have to have an appreciation for the money side of the business in order to So first of all, just everyone that's here, we're planting the seed that they could become CEO, which I think the power of suggestion is real.
Yeah.
But when they're looking around their agencies or even in client meetings, like what is the frame of mind that people should take on where they can start to inhabit a CEO mindset?
Good question. When I was a rising creative, I was kind of obsessed with being indispensable. So I always wanted to be this person, and maybe this is my own mania, but I just wanted to be the person that the clients and the agency, well, we can't have the meeting without him. That guy really, he really understands it. When I got to Chiat, I kind of learned one of the secrets. This is one of Lee's secrets. He was just like, no more than the clients. No more about their history, no more about where they could go. And that is a big insight because when you start to know more than the clients, you have what we started calling, you have an enterprise mindset. You become an enterprise creative. And that means you're not just thinking about the right words, the right image for this particular post that you're working on. You're thinking about how that piece of social media works within an ecosystem, which starts to affect the salespeople, which starts to affect the rest of the organization. And when you start to look at things holistically that way, it is amazing how when you present your idea and you start to make these references to these other parts of the business where everybody goes, oh, she's the one we need to follow. It's just amazing what happens. It's like, it's unbelievable. And that is really your first moment of leadership. When you start to take on the enterprise on an assignment, that's the first moment you become a leader.
So thinking like an owner.
Yeah, I like that. That's great. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. That's really smart. On the money thing that you referenced, so I don't know about you, like I got into advertising not to do math. So, when you become a CEO, there are these conversations where they, the P&L and, all that stuff. And when you meet account people, rising account people who want to, join the agency, oftentimes like, well, I want to control a P&L. And I was thinking, as a creative, like, I don't want to go near the P&L,
Right.
and, as a creative, you're kind of in the department of spend, you're not in the department of save. But when I started framing this up as a CEO, I really was not great on the MBA stuff. So as I was telling someone today, I said, well, I just enrolled at MIT. They said, what? Well, why MIT? And I said, oh, well, that's engineering MBA. They're like, what? Like, when did you do this? When did you have the time? And I said, oh, I had the time in the morning when I was on the Stairmaster, going on YouTube. Because MIT has this thing called free courseware. And you'll take a class. There's this amazing professor, Professor Lowe. It was a whole class on finance. Wow. I didn't take any finance classes in college. I barely graduated. And so, but you start to take, you just, thanks Google, start to Google some stuff, start to take some classes. Khan Academy is a good one, and suddenly you know the difference between revenue and profit. I'm not going to lie to you, I didn't know the difference. I was like, oh yeah, whatever, it's money. It's not though. You need to know the language. It's like going to work in an agency in Spain. You have to know a little Spanish.
Yeah, yeah. And I framed this whole discussion of you need to understand how money is spent and to have a creative prioritization mindset. So tell me, and I believe that, and I believe you probably bring something different than someone that was an account person or a media person. Like, can you think of an example of a time where you've made a determination about what the agency is going to do with money or with a client, or maybe not going after a piece of business, or like how has that colored your contributions?
Well, the money conversation is interesting. It's always complicated, no matter what. Even when you ask, your kids ask you for money, or you ask your parents for money, it's always hard. So you must acknowledge that. One thing I've learned at 3%, hear something, acknowledge it. Okay. What I think the perspective that's different is, for example, we were having a conversation on the bonus pool.
Okay.
And there was a lot of conversation about protecting the bonus pool. And when I was thinking about it, it wasn't so much, and I don't think the room was this way necessarily, but it was important to protect those bonuses, not for the leadership team. It wasn't for us, like, oh, we're running the agency. No, you need the bonuses to reward the people who are doing the hard work every single day. And I think sometimes you might forget that. If you came in through a finance background, sometimes, I'm not saying all finance people are that way, but they're looking at the P&L, it's a document, that spreadsheet, and things are just numbers and line items. And I think you know as a creative what it took to make something happen. So you know that that bonus, whatever it is, large, medium, or small, it's going to mean something. And I think having that kind of empathy for the makers is something that creative people will inherently bring to a CEO role.
And maybe even having a creative view of the spreadsheet. Have you ever heard that expression, there's more fiction written in Excel than in Word?
I have not. Oh, maybe only with Bernie Madoff. I don't know. The typefaces are always very ugly. One thing I learned on these spreadsheets is that the accounting piece is history, but the finance piece is the future. Yeah. So our CFO is very good at calculating. Here's what's happened, and each bit of numbers tells a story about what's happening. Oh, we're running hot in production, so we're probably making a lot of good stuff, or we're whatever that portrait is. But the creative piece is where to spend the money. So, I learned a very good phrase, which is, this is going to sound very CEO-like, we need to hire ahead of revenue. Doesn't that sound pretty CEO-like? We're going to hire ahead of revenue. What that means is that we don't have the money to invest in a good creative person. So we're going to have to sacrifice, some reporting piece to our corporate overlords at Omnicom, who are here to help. We're gonna jeopardize that that number that they're aiming for the sake of investing in the company, and that I think is a creative act.
Yeah, and this whole conference is about culture and creating cultures where people want to work. And one of the things that doesn't get talked about a lot is having a toxic culture is awful for your bottom line. Oh, yeah. Because every person who quits quickly, and we've heard, sat with agencies that have 50% of their people leaving in a year. If you're an HR person, that is murder on your bottom line. So all the things, the squishy things, the culture things, like I know you went through ambassadors training, now called men training, but like all of those things where you get ahead of creating a culture where people actually want to work and stay and tell others to come work, that, I don't know how you see that in your bottom line, but it's there.
Well, ambassadors, it doesn't come free, and I think it's worth every penny, and when we were working with 3% on something like ambassador, it's to make our people stronger, right. And there's this argument sometimes that happens, or this, moment that happens, where the CFO says, we're spending all this money on our people to go to these conferences and to get training, and then a lot of them wind up leaving. And then you have to respond, yeah, so if we don't spend on them, they stay, and then they get dumber. You have to, and I'm not saying that people are dumb, but I'm saying that, everybody in this room, you owe it to yourself to expand yourself. Your first brand, your first company is the company of you. Don't be like me. Learn your finance stuff, before you're 40. But I think you owe it to yourself to invest in yourself, because not only is it great for you, for your career, you learn how to code, you learn how to do stuff. You're actually going to be able to contribute more to the company. And I think the companies, I'll tell you as a CEO, if you tell me you're coming to this or you're going to a course, I'm going to look for ways to try to pay for that.
Yeah, and I also think that when diverse talent gets trained and believes in themselves, if they get poached and you're back to zero, you didn't have enough diverse talent. I know. Cindy Gallup stood on our stage a few years ago and said, bulk buy women, meaning like, don't just hire one female creative director, like really aim to have good representation so that if someone you've trained decides to leave and it's better for her, it doesn't make all of your efforts, rewind. So.
Yeah, just on what you're saying there. First of all, diversity equals money. I'm seeing Doug Melville there. He and I have this conversation. He's our Chief Diversity Officer. Diverse people bring money to the agency because you are getting energy and different points of view. I sat downstairs with leaders from unexpected places, and Thaz is down there, and Gia, people I worked with, and they're great. They come at it differently, and they know how to grow things differently. So there's always that piece on the diversity. And I forgot what else I was going to say, but keep going. Something good will happen.
All right, well, I know we had scoped out this session to be interactive because I want to know, does it scare you guys to imagine being CEO? Obviously, you're here, so you were interested in what are the things that your right brain, left brain self is struggling with? Because Rob's the guy to answer. So just raise your hand if you have a question and we'll run you a mic. Okay.
This is my favorite part.
Thank you so much. This is really inspiring.
Oh, good.
My question is, do you have anything you don't like about being a CEO? And what are they? And what do you do to cope against those internal demons?
What don't I like? You know, I've kind of trained myself to be, I'm going to sound really airy, just I don't know how I'm going to sound, but I've trained myself to take negativity and feedback as a gift. You know, we heard it downstairs, feedback is a gift, and your first instinct is like, oh, no, it's not. But I think that, I'm in my mid-50s now, and I've learned that, we're on this earth for a short amount of time. And I'm lucky to be here. I'm lucky you're listening. I'm lucky you're still here. I'm lucky I met Kat. And I think with a little gratitude, I tell my kids all the time, gratitude is the attitude. I can take anything that I don't really like, and if it's specifically, I don't love the 9+3 finance meetings, I don't love them, but I start to go, well, this is an opportunity to tell our story. So yes, it's painful to go through these numbers meetings and, the run rate and this, that, and the other thing, the percentages and all that good stuff, but you have a chance to tell a story.
Thank you.
Hello. I have a specific question about, I guess, the glass ceiling, so to speak. I was talking to a coworker of mine about this specific talk, and she kind of discouraged me from going simply because she felt that it was already so hard for women to get to the point of ACD or creative director. So what would be the point of us getting into the CEO range or even thinking about that? And it made me really sad for her to think that she couldn't see herself in that kind of powerful position as a female. And she's an ACD. And I want to be able to take this, I guess, back with her or back to her and say, you can, but how do I empower my female creatives to think positively in that way?
That's good. Well, I think the first thing is look at the progress, 29%. So I met Kat in 2012, 3%. So things are changing. And I think in some ways it's never been a better time to be a woman in our business. You're in demand now. I think it's much more difficult to be a middle-aged white guy. And I'm not feeling bad for middle-aged white people. I mean, listen, we had a good run. But so I do think the moment is now. And I think you'd be surprised. Someone said it downstairs, just start asking. Ask for some stuff. And I think you'd be surprised. And I think having your stuff together, like having the, like that enterprise thinking. A little enterprise thinking goes a long way.
I totally agree. And I don't know if you guys saw, I posted something to our social channels within the past year, and it was a tweet that a woman put up that she'd made a New Year's resolution to get 100 rejection letters in the course of the year, and that she wasn't going to hit her goal because she was getting so many acceptances. She was shocked. She was almost doing it like a social experiment, but people were saying, sure, yes, come in, we want you to speak, we'll pay that, whatever. And she's like, holy shit, we're not asking for enough.
Yeah.
So ask for what you want. We're already out of time, which is, but we're going to hear a little conclusion from our Google sponsor, who's sponsored the last 5 hours of this amazing emerging creative. I've been here the whole time. I've loved every second. And then we're all going to go back downstairs for some closing keynotes and cocktails. So, Allie, I believe from Google, here you are.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Rob. You're awesome.
Oh, thank you.